This is episode 21, and I'm really happy to be here with you. My name is Derek Rogers. I'm along here with the co-host, John Perez.
Hey.
John. And today we have a very exciting special guest.
Yay.
We have Dan Delaney. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, Dan, real quick, but before we get into our topic for today, we just want to find out who you are. So if you want to just give us a background, where you're from, where you grew up, family, where you went to college, and what you're doing now, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely. So I was born and raised in Wisconsin, over on the west side of the state. Maybe my accent will give that away.
Nice.
But grew up there, went through Catholic schooling all my life, kindergarten through high school. In high school, had a wonderful senior teacher who really helped me dive into the Catholic faith. He pointed me towards Christendom College. That was at a time when I really didn't know where I wanted to go to college or what I wanted to do. So him pointing me to Christendom was very instrumental in my life. Went to Christendom, had my major in theology. There I met a beautiful young lady named Sarah Ford. I decided she was worth the effort, and so after graduating from Christendom, went back home to Wisconsin for a little bit until I could find a job in the Indianapolis area where she has lived all her life. And so I got a job, moved down here in Indy, and was able to wed her. We've had 3 wonderful kids since then, and they have been just a plethora of blessings. Since our marriage, I have gone on to get my master's in accounting. And currently, right now, I'm with a CPA firm, and I'm going through the fun of trying to pass the CPA exam.
Oh,
nice.
Dude, nice wrap up, man. That's really good. You covered like everything. But first of all, I mean, the most important question. So are you a Colts fan or are you a Packers fan?
Well, I'm definitely a Packers fan first. I will always be a Wisconsin Badger. I will always be a Cheesehead. So those are my roots. But I will, if they're not playing the Packers, I'm definitely rooting for the Colts, hoping they do well, because I'm sure you guys have seen football can affect people's attitudes. So Mondays at work are a lot nicer when the Colts win.
See, that's the ideal way to look at sports, man. That's really good. What are the ages and names of your kids?
Lucy is 7.
Yay.
Molly will be turning 5 next month, and Michael will be turning 3 next month. So I've got Lucy Margaret, Molly Catherine, and Michael Augustine.
Awesome.
Oh, hey man, he's got parts of our names, man, and so John has a Lucy, and then my son Isaac's middle name is Augustine. So that's pretty cool.
Very
man.
nice.
Very awesome.
See, it's nice to talk to you guys. I had a friend when Sarah was pregnant with Michael, and we said his name's going to be Michael Augustine. One of my friends was like, Michael what?
Right.
Oh, that's sad, man. That's like the doctor, man. It's the doctor in the church. Come on, man.
Yeah, the Augustine name wasn't too familiar to that person, so.
Well, that's good, man. The name will get out there. Maybe people will start paying attention to it now a little bit more. Dan, we're really excited to have you joining us with this episode because this is our 21st episode, and we thought the best 21 way to celebrate being 21 was with a drink. So if you fellas, do you have a glass? Do you have something to drink?
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Absolutely.
So we're going to do... I am going to hold up this brew, and this is to the podcast and all those Catholic dads and, moms out there too. But this will be a cheers for all of them. So I'm going to do this. I have this old scented candle that's empty, and I have my beer bottle. So we're going to cheers on the count of 3. We'll cheers. So that way we'll have an audio sound of us cheersing together. Okay.
Here, I got it. Ready?
All right. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Cheers.
There you go.
21, Derek. 21, man. We made 21 episods. How about that?
I can't believe it, man. I remember when we hit 10, and that was a really momentous occasion.
We haven't lost an episode, have we? For a podcast? Knock on wood.
Yeah. I mean, 20. What are we going for here, John? How many are we aiming for? We're 21 right now.
21. I'm gonna just say the Catholic answer, and let's just go where the Spirit leads. You know what I mean?
As many as God blesses us with.
Yeah, exactly.
So for this episode, we're going to be covering the wonderful age of 21, and most importantly, one of the great privileges that comes with hitting 21, which is drinking. So we're going to be covering drinking with the saints, and Dan is going to be talking to us a little bit about this. But first of all, I want to ask you guys, what do you guys remember about turning 21? Was it an important day, or was it one that was not met with any interest? Like, Dan, I'll start with you. What do you remember about turning 21? Was there any festivities or anything?
Mine was definitely the latter of what you said. Mine was probably as uneventful as it gets. I maybe do have a little bit of an excuse. When I was at Christendom, I was a year older than most of my classmates.
Oh.
So when I turned 21, everyone else was 20, so I didn't have a lot of people to celebrate with. But,
see, that's good. Look at you, man. Yeah. No upperclassmen to find.
So, right. So I think we went to a bar, and at that time I really didn't know many drinks or things like that. So I think I did a whiskey sour or an old fashioned.
Yeah.
I just went with one of the classic drinks.
Yeah. Nice, dude. Do you remember what bar it was by any chance?
I don't. It was in.
It
was in Manassas. I don't know if we tried to class it up a little more and go outside of Front Royal. So.
You tried to class it up and go to Manassas?
Well,
I mean, I live here, so I already know. Wow, okay, Front Royal. I mean, I love it, man. People that grew up in Front Royal, Manassas, they're gonna love that. That's really good. John? What about you, man? How was 21 for you?
21 was interesting. I had kind of two things. I celebrate with my family, of course. I went to Buffalo Wild Wings with my family. Ordered Yingling because that's what I knew already, and then the weekend, the weekend of me turning 21, I went to the campus of Virginia Commonwealth University, and because my cousin was out there, and shout out to you, Lee, and we had a party or something like that, and yeah, it was very cliche. Let me just say that, very cliche.
Was it low key, or was it I mean, yours so far sounds like the highest amount of I don't know, participation in the celebration?
Yeah, no, it definitely was. One of my probably least favorite memories and favorite memories was my good friend Lawrence, and we're still good friends to this day. I was drinking. I was no, I'm gonna chill. I'm just gonna have a couple drinks, and I was drinking. I think it was rum and coke or something, and he was all right, let's do a shot, and I was okay, let's do that. And so I had a chaser that was coke, and and then behind my back, when I wasn't watching, he would pour more rum into my coke.
No.
So without me knowing, so I kept drinking, and then obviously being super inebriated, I was oh man, end of the night was not fun. So that was my 21. So yeah, how about you, Derek? How was yours, dude?
Mine, so because I only went to Christendom for 2 years, so I was back home at that point because I was now going to SUNY Fredonia to finish up my bachelor's. And when I hit 21, my mom and dad, because my mom used to be a waitress and my dad was a bartender, so that's how they met at the same place. So of course my mom and dad were it's your birthday, we're going to take you out to the bar. Nice. And I was at first I'm this is kind of lame. My mom and dad are taking me out drinking, because I didn't have, all my good friends were still at Christendom,
Yeah.
And I'm I didn't have, the friends that I had at Fredonia were involved with other things. And if I went out, I didn't like the situation I'd be getting into if I was out there. There was, I had a lot of friends that smoked weed out there, and I did not feel comfortable in that situation. So my mom and dad, I'm this is lame. My mom and dad are taking me out of the bar, and then at the same time, I was this is kind of cool. And I had enough knowledge to say this is a cool moment. I'm going with mom and dad. So we drove in the van down to Tavern on the Mall, right in Forestville, where it's a one-horse town, man. It's you got your gas station, your pizza. It's the gas station, pizzeria, video store was all one place. So and the tavern was right across the street from the bank. It felt old Western, So I go in there, and my mom and dad are like, what do you want to drink? And, they didn't have Yingling because at that time Yingling was still down, south. So my dad was like, we'll get you a Killian's and, maybe Guinness and some. And my mom and dad were they bought me a few beers. And at that point, like, I was like, this is okay. And we were like laughing and talking. And they were telling me about when they were 21. And I had a great time. And I was surprised because got home, I'm like, wow, I drank more than I thought, I did. And my parents, like, that was a cool turning point for my parents and I, because it was just like, they're awesome. They went and they bought me drinks, cool. And it was a great time. It wasn't lame at all, I really enjoyed it.
Who was DD, your mom or your dad?
I don't even remember at that point. It was probably, nice. I don't know. It was probably my dad or mom. I don't know.
Man, that is cool. I mean, like, if I was 21 and my parents took me out, I'd probably think that was lame. But looking back, man, that would have been so awesome. So I'm glad you had kind of the maturity, I guess you could call it, to like just be like, to see the situation and be like, this is kind of cool that my parents are taking me out for my, presumably my first drink.
And we've talked about this before, John, but like my mom and dad are really fun individuals, and my dad, especially when he gets a drink in him, he's Mr. Talkative. So. Sure. It was just a really good experience. Real quick now, guys, from when you were 21, when you had your drink, to this point in your life, what do you guys have like favorite drinks? I want to start with Dan. Dan, do you have like a favorite, either beer or even a mixed drink or both? Like, what do you like here? What do you go by?
I've got a couple things. Growing up at Christmas time on my dad's side, when we'd all meet, the tradition there was grasshoppers. And the way we do them is, they're real simple. You just put vanilla ice cream into a blender, pour in some green creme de menthe, and just blend that together and fill up the blender and pour them out into glasses. And it's basically a little alcohol mint shake. So that's
what
always
alcohol
been
do you put in that?
Creme de menthe is the alcohol.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So so that's always been one of my favorites, and two, it's obviously a light alcohol drink as well, so you can enjoy it.
Yeah, there you go.
And then I guess kind of looking at beer, since I grew up in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, there's a little town that's kind of connected to it called Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. That is where Leinenkugel's brewery is based out of. So I have a little local connection with that. So I definitely enjoy some Leinie's Summer Shandy.
Nice. John, what about you?
Let's see. In college, man, I don't know why, but I don't know about you guys, but in college, it was all vodka I don't know if it's because it's cheap or something, but it was all vodka in college, and I hate vodka to this day. But nowadays, I'm a big beer guy, but I like, my first beer was Yingling, and I was like, that was all I knew. But then I, got into more. But if you ever in Norfolk, Virginia, or Virginia Beach, Virginia, there's a local brewery there called Smart Mouth, and it's like my favorite beer to this day. It's kind of like an ale-ish beer. They do have like an IPA, but it's really good. It's like a local of mine. It's like kind of like home every time I have it. Like every time I visit my family, I always go to the local grocery store because that's where they have it, and go get a case of it, and then bring it back up. I think I still have some actually. Probably should. I should drink that. That would have been cool.
Something really funny, like at school, like you really regret, like you said, vodka, and it's just like, at college, you don't have much money either, so it's like I remember like Yingling was something that was introduced to me like when my friends down at college, but it was like Keystone and Red Dog
and Natty Light,
Red Stripe. I don't. It was terrible. No, not Natty
Light, Derek.
But the other one. Well, and the funny thing is, my dad, because he heard about Yingling, and he's up in New York, and he's like, Derek, can you get me? Because they don't sell it up here. Can you get me Yingling? And he lives up in Buffalo. And I'm like, Dad, I'm not even of age. I can't buy. He's like, there's someone on campus that will get you the Yingling. Really, he's like, you don't drink it, just bring it home to me. That's so funny. I was like, Dad's a funny guy. But I think right now, I think my favorite beers, I think it's Newcastle. I like Guinness. I like the heavier stouts and stuff. But then Jameson is always good.
Jameson's good.
At weddings, I gotta go with whiskey gingers, man.
That's what I'm drinking right now. That's what I'm drinking right now. And shout out to Old Fashions, by the way. I love that's my favorite drink. I love good old fashioned.
So what I want to do is I want to quick jump to this. as Catholics, there's a lot of different religions that really are saying no to alcohol, and the Catholic faith is a little bit different. And there's some great quotes attributed to this. I want to do a couple quotes real quick about drinking, and this first one is from Chesterton. It's not in the Bible, but he's a great writer. But I want to read this to you, and then a couple of phrases in the Bible, and then we'll kind of get into talking to Dan about this one book he's been reading. So G.K. Chesterton says, "Drink because you're happy, but never because you're miserable. Never drink when you are wretched without it, or you will be like the gray-faced gin drinker in the slum. But drink when you would be happy without it, and you will be like the laughing peasant of Italy. Never drink because you need it, for this is rational drinking, and the way to death and hell. But drink because you do not need it, for this is irrational drinking and the ancient health of the world." So, and along with that, in Ecclesiastes 9 verse 7, they say, "Go eat your bread with enjoyment and drink your wine with merry heart, for God has long ago approved what you do." And then, of course, we have Jesus at the wedding feast of Cana, changing the water into wine. And it was always something that really wasn't shied away. And then another one is Ephesians says, it talks about drinking throughout like scripture, but it also warns us too, because St. Paul speaks out against drunkenness a couple times. He does it in Romans, Galatians, and Ephesians. But in Ephesians, he says, "Do not get drunk with wine, for that is debauchery, but be filled with the Spirit." And the Catholic Church, of course, as many of us know, teaches that you can drink in moderation. And that is something I think is beautiful, because a lot of things with our faith is teaching us about moderation. A lot of the times, like, the drinking is paired with just kind of joy and merriment, not just like drinking by yourself, but merriment with other people. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. So I want to just point out, when I was on Facebook, Dan Delaney, he went to Christian college just like and I think you're the class of 07. Is that what it is, Dan?
Yes.
So I was like,
07.
Yeah, so you were in the same year as my wife then, I think, right? I think
Correct.
She was 07. So Dan and I are friends on Facebook, and I would see him post every now and then with like a different kind of drink on Facebook. And in the background, there's this book, and it was like, it's called Drinking with Saints. And I'm like, that is the most interesting thing, because I would see you post something all the time. And by the way, my wife is a big fan of your wife. She sees some of the posts on Instagram, and Bethany's like, she's like a super wife. She does like all these awesome things. She does art stuff with the kids. She's amazing. So my wife is a big fan of your wife's, Dan. But on Facebook, I kept seeing that. So I'm just curious, Dan, can you talk to us a little bit about Drinking with the Saints, who the author is and what it's about? Because it is very interesting, because to see this mixture of different things that you're doing, and I'm just curious about the philosophy of the book, or, what its kind of idea is.
Yeah, sure. Actually, that was a great segue, as you had just kind of mentioned indirectly. My wife, right there, is she's actually, whether it's irony or not, she's the one that introduced me to the book. I had never heard of it before. Oh, cool. She had heard about it. I think a friend that had recommended a podcast, and the podcast, I think, was from the author of the book. So that's kind of how she actually heard about the book. But yeah, so the book is called Drinking with the Saints, The Sinner's Guide to a Holy Happy Hour. And it's by Michael P. Foley, who is a professor at Baylor University. And he notes that, yes, he wrote a drinking book at a kind of like in a dry county, or I think even Baylor might be a dry campus.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So, but yes, and kind of the purpose of the book is exactly what your Chesterton quote was about. And I've seen a couple of Professor Foley, like he's done some local news interviews, like in Texas and stuff like that. And so I've seen those, and I think he even actually at one point quoted the same Chesterton quote that you said, because he very much emphasizes on, hey, this is meant to be done in a spirit of merriment. And, that the drinking should be a part of a greater thing. Drinking should not be its own cause. It should be part of the whole merriment and celebration of life or, specific things. So that's kind of the purpose of this book. And he does attribute that he did get the idea from this group, whether they were priests or not, I don't remember specifically, but they would kind of have something kind of along the lines of drinking with the saints. They'd honor a saint, they'd have a drink, they'd toast to him, and then, they'd kind of learn about the saint, and then, just kind of have a evening of fellowship. And so he kind of got that idea. And so I think on his sabbatical, he basically took time to write his book. And so he went through, and obviously he, went through the Roman calendar and the saints on their feast days, and then he was looking at drinks, and he was doing his best to kind of match them up.
That's cool.
And
that's awesome.
And I guess too, it's just that's kind of the beauty of the Catholic faith. Is like, first you see this book and you're like, how do you match drinking alcohol to saints' feast days?
Right, man.
But then when you start getting into it, you see how it just builds upon each other. And that's kind of like the Catholic faith. Some people might go, oh, well, they do this, and that's weird, and that's weird. But then when you start looking at it, you go, oh, it stems from this, which leads to that, and then you can kind of see the full fruition of why that's so. So that's the basic premise of the book, is trying to learn about the saints and learn a way that you can kind of enjoy some alcoholic beverages and just kind of increase your faith and do it all in good spirits and merriment.
So I'm curious about, how do you read a book like that? So, for instance, if we just read the Jim Gaffigan Dad is Fat thing, and it's more of a comedy, like, a quick kind of read. With a book like that, it sounds like it's tied in with the calendar. Do you read through it, or do you like have it with your calendar that you say, oh, it's, St. Thomas Aquinas's feast day, and let's see what drink it is? How do you go about actually involving the book into your daily life, or like the saint feast days?
Yeah, you can, really do it in any way you want. If there are saints that you like, you can obviously look them up and see if there's a drink that you like that's associated with it. Sometimes you find a saint, that you really like, and you see the drink and you're like, oh, I don't like any of that. But on the other hand too, is kind of what I do is I will follow it kind of through the calendar. I'll, maybe at the beginning of the week, like, okay, whose feast days are coming up, and then I'll see the drinks associated with it. And then I'll try and look at, hey, is that a drink that I want to do? If I want to do the drink, do I have the ingredients for the drink? Because that's another thing. And Professor Foley also, he stresses that too. He said, hey, some of these ingredients might take a little bit of searching to find. So you want to try and plan ahead. So yeah, it's not like you can read it cover to cover per se, but you can follow it along through the year. He goes through the calendar, but then he also has an Advent section. He's got a Christmas tide section. He's got a Lent section and an Eastertide section as well. So yeah, he's got the church calendar.
He's got it all covered. Wow,
he does. He really does.
What's the,
and yeah, so since my wife is good about doing feast days with the kids, it kind of helps me to participate as well, and keeps me abreast on feast days that are going on.
That's right, because you could only have the drink shared with your wife. You're not going to be spreading it to your kids like, hey, enjoy this St. Joan of Arc shot. Yeah.
Right.
Is there, John, and you might have been asking this, is there a specific one that you've enjoyed the most so far?
Like in terms of saint or a drink?
Just a drink. Well, a combo. Like I don't know. I can imagine, like, are they tongue-in-cheek mixed drinks? Because I'm thinking of, there's other, I don't know, types of media. Let's say like there's a Game of Thrones drinking thing where they have these specific drinks to match certain aspects of, the characters or what. Do they, and it's a lot of the times it's like a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing. Is this book more of a like, a specific way to celebrate the ingredients, or is there, like, this is the St. Stephen shot in the side drink, or is there some humor to it, or is it like a very intellectual way to approach it?
Yes, well, kind of per the Catholic faith, it's the typical both and.
Okay.
So yeah, he is tongue in cheek with things, and even the drinks that are chosen sometimes are kind of tongue in cheek, and then other times, I mean, but even when he's doing that, you can tell he's still doing it in a sense of, hey, you know, we're still learning about the saint and honoring the saint. And then other times, I mean, it's definitely, you know, more on, you know, there's not as much humor in it, but you know, you're still learning about the saint, and the drink, you know, somehow aligns with the saint as well. I guess, like, for an example of some of the tongue-in-cheek, so just I'll list a few of the saints and like the drinks he's got associated, and this will kind of help give a flavor of the book as well. So, you know, for the feast of St. Thomas Aquinas, obviously, you know, he had a couple nicknames. He was also called the Dumb Ox, and he was, you know, a large man as well. So Professor Foley has a couple drinks, but one of them in the irony is called a Fat Friar. And then for the Feast of St. Lazarus, there's a drink called Corpse Reviver.
Wait, okay. So what's in the Corpse Reviver? It sounds like. Is there Red Bull tied in with this one? What's going on?
No, I don't think he has any energy drinks in his.
Okay. I was because Red Bull gives you wings. I didn't know if that's a tie-in with Lazarus. I didn't know, but
that might be a good suggestion though. But no, the Corpse Reviver is gin, Cointreau, Lillet Blanc, and lemon juice.
Okay.
So, but then I guess as kind of an example of. So those were examples of, or just kind of the name of the drink is a little bit of an irony or humor. Mm-hmm. But then he also does ones where, you know, the ingredients do have symbolism. Let me see here. For instance, for the Feast of St. Michael, there's a drink that's called St. Michael's Sword. And it uses, so this is kind of a cool example because it encompasses the drink, ingredients, and kind of you know, legend about St. Michael. And this was all stuff that I'd learned from reading the book. And so the St. Michael's Sword drink uses bourbon, but so because obviously St. Michael kicked Satan out of heaven, or, you know, kicked Lucifer out of heaven, who then became Satan, Professor Foley says, hey, well, if you can obviously use any bourbon you like, but Jim Beam makes a bourbon called Devil's Cut bourbon. So you use that, and then you have your devil reference. And the drink also uses blackberry brandy. And then there's the tradition where St. Michael, when he kicked Lucifer out of heaven, Lucifer, then becoming Satan, landed on thornberry bush. And he spat on he spat on the blackberry bush and cursed it. And this was new to me as well. That I guess so around that time of St. Michael's feast day, they say, hey, yeah, the blackberries aren't really good anymore after that. So he ties a lot into that drink. It's really neat.
Yeah, no, that is really cool. So do you have a specific one that you've done and because it gives you a way to mix it. So did you have one like Saint Feast Day with a drink that you enjoyed or one that your wife enjoyed?
Well, I guess, and you know, this might be for all the ladies. One that comes to mind in particular is the Feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. Professor Foley has 3 drinks chosen, but one of those, just kind of based on the name, is a caramel mochattini. So my wife definitely enjoys that day.
Nice.
So and the other neat thing he does is, if the saint's feast day is during the summer, he does try and make it a lighter drink. For example, and again, so this is sometimes where, you know, he stretches things a little bit, but for the Feast of St. John the Baptist, he has a pina colada. You kind of go, how is that connected? Well, the pina colada is the official drink of Puerto Rico, and St. John the Baptist is the patron saint of Puerto Rico.
That's interesting. Wow. Okay, cool. So this guy has done his research on things.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes,
I mean,
he has.
I mean, yeah, like you said, he's reaching at times, but on the other hand, it kind of works. I mean, that is pretty awesome. So is there something specifically, Dan, that you've gotten out of this where you're like it's added to your spiritual life as well? Or has it just been a nice fun addition? Like, what have you gotten out? Because I would assume you've had this book for how many years? Like 1 or 2?
Yep. This is about my second year. Yes.
So after the time of having this, and is there something that you've really gotten out of this, or has it just added to your spiritual life?
Well, it's definitely it's added to the fun. It's definitely added to my liquor cabinet, which before was basically.
That's why I need this book, man. My liquor cabinet is empty. Okay, good.
So I guess that is the one thing. If you go out and get the book, definitely be prepared for. Again, you can pick and choose, but
cool.
you might need to clear a little space for the liquor cabinet. Yeah. But I guess what I've really enjoyed about this book, well, first off, is even though I went through Catholic schooling all my life, I was never really exposed very much to the saints, and so it always astounded me when I'd meet Catholics who could just rattle off saints and rattle off examples and stories of the saints, and that always impressed me. So my wonderful wife has tried on different occasions getting me things to, get me more exposure to the saints, and just for whatever reason, some of the past things haven't really clicked. So, Hey, she finds one that brings in alcohol, and boom.
There you go.
You've got it, man. That's great.
Derek and I have actually. Oh no, sorry. Keep going.
Oh, I was just saying. So it's helped me become more familiar with the saints and also with the calendar, because that was another thing when people are like, hey, happy birthday this, and I'd be like, oh wow, where did you find that? But then I think kind of the overreaching thing of the book is, obviously in our culture, we're trying to find ways to, reincorporate our Catholic faith into our culture. And to me, this is just a great example of that's how you do it. So now I have a pina colada and I'm thinking of St. John the Baptist.
And Puerto Rico. You can pray for Puerto Rico right there too, man.
Exactly. So just those little, even if they seem, maybe silly to some people, but at the same time, I mean, it's helping develop a mindset of, like, hey, now I'm thinking about even, the Catholic faith even more so, or even if I'm at the bar, I think of this, and, it's been a great conversation piece for, with other people as well. So that's helping. Throughout the book, he also has, kind of like little prayers that he uses as toasts. And so it's been real enlightening and enriching about, multiple lives of the saints.
Yeah, you've sold me on getting this book, to be honest. Like, I'm really interested in getting this and purchasing this book. For our listeners, I mean, would you recommend it? Or, I mean, it sounds like you would, but like your thoughts for recommending it to people and where they can get this book.
Yes, I would absolutely recommend it. I've had, you've mentioned, obviously, you've seen my social media posts with the drink and the pictures. Obviously, other of my social media friends have as well, and a couple people have gotten their book because of seeing my posts, and they've enjoyed it. And so, yes, I absolutely recommend it. I do try to utilize mine frequently. Maybe for some people it might sit on the shelf. Who knows? But first and foremost, I would. If you're looking to buy it, I would say go and support your local Catholic bookstore. Buy it from them. If they don't have it, a lot of times they'll order it in for you. So I guess that's what I would say first. Otherwise, if not, then if you're doing it online, go through a Catholic source online, Ignatius Books or Sophia Press. See if I know Ignatius sells it. Go through there, and then if not, you can default with something like Amazon or whatever. But I would say seek your Catholic source first. We want to promote them, and then obviously they're seeing, hey, people are buying this. So
yeah, no, that's awesome. Like, John, you were saying something? Did you have any questions?
No, I was just gonna ask Dan here that we've talked many times on this podcast about saints are some of our favorite saints. We even had Derek and I don't know if you listened to the podcast before, Dan, but Derek and I had a famous, and not really that famous, Saints draft, talking about some of our favorite saints like John Paul II and St. Peter, and, of the like. Who are some of your favorite saints, whether they be from the book or just who are some saints that you've come to be inspired by?
First, I would say Saint Augustine. I chose him after I graduated from Christendom. Speaking of Catholic schooling all my life, for whatever reason, during my confirmation formation, they didn't have us choose saints.
Really? Okay. Do you know why, or just because they were?
That always surprised me when I kind of learned about that, and then I felt a little,
slighted,
kind of, cheated out of that. Like, hey, wait a minute. So Saint Augustine has always kind of stuck out to me in just the sense of, and again, in terms of today's culture, here's this guy who was going after all your stereotypical pleasures and was just able to see the foolishness of it. And then, so to not only, reconcile himself to God, but then, go above and beyond, obviously, with all of his discourses and books and teachings, is just been a great example of, something that I've seen. So he's always been one of my favorites. Obviously, St. Thomas Aquinas, for obvious reasons, his Summa. But I also think, unfortunately, because St. Thomas was so smart, I think a lot of his prayer stuff gets overlooked. Like, his hymns, his Tantum Ergo, Doro Te Devote. So to some, you can actually say St. Thomas Aquinas is underrated. I would say he is a little bit in terms of the spiritual side.
Sure.
So those are a couple of favorites. I love actually my kids. They kind of have been picking their saints, and they've even kind of gone through phases where they like one saint for a little while, and then they kind of find a new saint. That's cool. So it's fun learning about the saints through them and
so amazing.
That's awesome.
Yes. And talk about being able to learn about yourself is from your kids. So,
well, and it's cool about just God blessing us with these opportunities to learn more about the saints, whether it be through a book about drinking or even your children. It's so awesome how if you try to, the sort of saints can be incorporated in our lives and just bestow a great blessing upon us. Even if our life didn't start with them, like you were mentioning, like that's awesome, Dan. I appreciate you spending time with us and like talking about this fantastic book. Dan, did you have any final thoughts before we move on here?
Just kind of going on the theme of, creating the Catholic culture. Maybe some people might have a couple issues with things Professor Foley chose, but like two examples of saints in the drinks he chose. So he has, for Saint Therese of Lisieux, she had a quote where she spoke about, hey, now people have elevators in their homes. Like rich people have elevators. They don't even need to climb the stairs. And so she says, I would like an elevator too, because I am so lowly that I cannot climb up to God. I need an elevator to take me up to God. And so the drink he chooses is called Love in an Elevator. And he specifically says, hey, maybe Aerosmith's song. And obviously that's, that song's not very much in line with our Catholic faith and our deals on, how to live life.
Yeah.
But so being able to take something like that and make it Catholic and put a good positive spin on it. So now when I hear Love in an Elevator, hey, I also think, St. Therese Lisieux and that beautiful quote she had.
Sure.
That's what an amazing combination of like people that you just tied in right there. That's fantastic. I mean, now I'm going to think of that every time. That is so funny. So weird.
But yes, and so it's hilarious. It is. There's still like a truth to it, and so just being able to build that culture, I think, is what really shines through in this book. So that would be my last thing to say on it.
Awesome. Well, Dan, again, thank you so much for just sharing this. I think it's the perfect way to have our 21st episode, and I really appreciate your insight on that. We're going to do some shout outs and prayer requests right now. John, is there anyone you want to start shouting out here?
I have a couple of people on the shout out list this week. First of all, we forgot last week, but our good friend Chris Batu, friend of the show, patron of ours,
good man,
emailed us a very, very nice email saying how much he's inspired by the show and how much he enjoys the show. So appreciate it. Thank you for your email. And, we thank you so much for just your time to contact us. On Instagram, I don't know if you saw this, Derek, Instagram account by the name of Dude Catholic. Have you seen his message to us?
No, I didn't see it.
So there's this guy on Instagram called Dude Catholic, and he was just saying how much he enjoys our episodes, especially enjoyed our the Trusting in God episode. He kind of went through this kind of a similar situation.
I did see that.
Check out his Instagram at Dude Catholic. He has these really awesome graphics. Speaking of the Saints, he does like Saints quotes and these really cool graphics and pictures. So check him out. Shout out to my friend Clarissa Chichioko. She sent us a nice comment on the movies one. Wait, was it the movie? No, the TV one where we talked about TV and the family and how much time we should be spending with our kids watching TV and stuff like that. So she had a very nice comment talking about how she wanted to thank us for just being honest and authentic, which is really what we're trying to go for. And last but not least, we keep forgetting, but the Zazo family, Derek, your friends from, are they from Holy Trinity or were they from St. Andrews or something?
Our Lady of Good Counsel.
Our Lady of Good Counsel. Shout out to you guys. They keep listening to our stuff and commenting on our stuff. So thank you, Zazo family. We truly appreciate it. Like, I know, is that the wife or I know Andrew, the guy,
Irene,
and
Andy.
She keeps commenting on our stuff. And, to be honest with you, it's nice to just have her comment on our stuff. So thank you.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. My shout out will go to good friend Mark Parrington, who on one of our podcasts had heard about my problems with sushi, and so he's like, "I'm taking you out to have sushi." So it was in Manassas. He took me to this sumo sushi place, and then he gave a whole tray of it. And I'm always worried when I go into one of those places, but it was. Other than the vegetable sushi rolls, which was absolutely disgusting. The vegetable one was so disgusting. It was crunchy. The salmon, though, I think it was the first time I ever had salmon, to be honest. And fish has always scared me. Okay. I've had the bone in the fish one time, and I didn't like the taste. It was cooked bad. So, we were there. I bought some of the hot sake. I got to see all these sumo wrestler pictures all around us while I was eating all the sushi. It was a good experience. So, a shout out to Mark, who is also expecting within the next couple weeks their third child.
That's right.
And they don't know the gender right now. So his little boys are hoping for a girl, and they don't know. So I think a girl would be perfect for him right now. So keep him and his family in your prayers, for safe delivery.
Definitely will.
Did you want to go over the new review?
Oh, yeah. So, Derek, on our 21st episode, we got our 10th review. So, shout out to this person. Titled Dad's on a Mission, 5-star review. So, thank you.
5 stars. Amen.
By AGRC811. That was a couple of days ago. So, thank you. The review says, it's good to see the community of men who want to live their faith. We are out there and we're in this together. Thank you for the resource. As a sidebar, after listening to this podcast, I've had some tests done, and it turns out the manly quotient in my DNA has gone up 44%. So that's awesome. That's a really awesome review.
It's science, dude. You can't argue with science.
You can't.
I've been saying this all along. Like, everybody that wants to be more manly and maybe grow a thicker beard, you need to listen to this podcast.
Yep.
As Dan has pointed out, these are amazing drinks. You can grow in your spiritual life and your manliness by 44%.
There you go.
What a great review.
There you go.
John, do you think there's going to be a day when we're going to have more reviews than episodes?
I hope so. Leave us a review. iTunes. Go to iTunes. Go to the iPod. If you have an iPhone, go to the podcast app on your iPhone. Search up Bad Catholic Dads. Leave us a review there. Or if you don't have an iPhone, just go to iTunes on the computer. You can leave us a review there. So thank you.
So prayer requests. I threw mine out there with the Parrington family. Please pray for them for safe delivery. John, did you have any prayer requests?
Just for me and my new job this year and starting it. This is my last official week of summer before I go teach theology to a bunch of knuckleheads in high school.
Yes.
So just pray for me and just for the beginning of for all teachers really as they kind of wrap up their summer. So,
Dan, what about you?
Something kind of near and dear to me is St. Joseph the Worker. That was the cathedral parish in my diocese back in Wisconsin. A couple years ago, I went through a little period where I was unemployed. So I kind of have a special place in my heart for those who are unemployed and are, trying to find jobs, trying to support their family, and just always trying to keep them in my prayers.
100%. Yeah, definitely.
Amen. Awesome. All right. Final announcements.
We're having is it third episode or fourth episode, Derek?
I think it's our third.
Is it our third? Oh my gosh. Anyway, it's our third or fourth episode.
Fourth.
It's
right? Fourth.
All right, it's our fourth. It's our fourth.
Right, because let's count it down. We
Jim
did Silence,
Gaffigan, Silence,
Gaffigan, and then we did Wonder Woman and Spider-Man. So that was a combo.
So
this is number 4.
Fourth episode of BCD Squared. It's our second podcast that we have here on Bad Catholic Dads, but it's only a monthly podcast, so it only comes once a month. Our Dunkirk, our review is going to be Dunkirk, and that'll be out later this week, either Thursday or Friday. It just depends when we get it out. So definitely stay tuned for that. And remember, our podcasts are no longer on Mondays. They have been switched to Wednesdays at 9 a.m. same time to just help accommodate me and Derek when we're crazy busy. We have like the weekend plus a couple days here and there. So podcasts Wednesdays at 9 a.m. and our BCD Squared, which is our second podcast, comes monthly, usually in the first or second week of the month. So there you go.
Awesome. And you can find us at all the spots where you can listen to podcasts. You can find us on YouTube, everything. Just look for us there. Help us help you grow in manliness by 44%, and also help us with those reviews. They help us a lot, and we really appreciate it. Anything else, John, before we wrap this up?
I think we're good. Thanks, Dan, for coming on the show. We truly appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Hey, everybody, don't drink and drive.
Thank you, guys.
And hey, drink responsibly.